Okay, now that we've completed the book of Numbers, I think it's worthwhile to take a bird's eye view of these three books of the Torah, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, because as you recall, we said these are the three books of the Torah that focus on the development of the nation. This is where we see the Jewish people developing from Egypt, the events on the ground, so to speak. When we get into Deuteronomy, it's Moses' final address to the nation as he prepares us to go into the land of Israel without him. But the events and sort of the episodes that occur in the desert, that chapter has more or less been completed by the book of Numbers. So let's see if we can understand the overall context of these three books which make up the development of the nation. I think you'll find something really fascinating here. As you recall, we said in an earlier video that the tabernacle spans three books. We have the 5 parshas in Exodus that deal with the building of the tabernacle, the 8 parshas in Leviticus that focus on how to use a tabernacle, and then we saw recently the 3 first parshas in Numbers that focus on how the Jewish people encamped around the tabernacle. So it's very interesting that we have 3 books that cover the tabernacle, and it wasn't all put into one book. I mean, the Torah could have been organized into, let's say, a longer book of close to 18 parshas of just the tabernacle, called the Book of the Tabernacle, but for some reason, it's covered over these 3 books. Let's see if we can understand possibly why. So a lot of people don't realize when they go through the Torah that there are 3 parshas in these 3 books that all occurred on the same day, the same year. In the book of Exodus, at the very end, Moses assembled the tabernacle. Right? We have the putting up of the tabernacle and God's presence descends, so to speak, in a cloud over the tabernacle. That occurred on the first day of the Jewish month Nisan, which is just shy of a full year of getting out of Egypt. They got out of Egypt on the 15th of the Jewish month Nisan, and now it's the next year on the 1st of that month. So Moses assembles the tabernacle. The same day that Moses assembled the tabernacle, over here in Leviticus, in parsha number 3, Aaron became the high priest, and his sons became installed as the priests. So that occurred over here. We saw the inauguration of the priesthood here. That was the exact same day that Moses assembled the tabernacle. The same day Moses assembled the tabernacle and the priests are installed, over here in the book of Numbers, in parsha number 2, the leaders of the tribes brought gifts to the altar. It was part of the dedication of the altar. We discussed that in an earlier video. That occurs over here in parsha number 2. 12 tribes bring their gifts, and the beginning again on the 1st of Nisan, the first tribe brings its gifts, and then for the next 11 days, more gifts are brought by each tribe. So it's interesting to note, we have these 3 parshas all occurring on the same day, same year. And perhaps we could say that when it comes to the tabernacle, there are really 3 different relationships to the tabernacle. Perhaps we could say that Exodus is Moses' relationship to the tabernacle. Like back in parsha number 9, that's the sin of the golden calf. If it wasn't for Moses' defense of the Jewish people, we wouldn't have been saved. And as a result, according to many commentators, that's why we do have a tabernacle. Then in parsha 7 and 8, he gets the instructions on how to build it. Then he gives over the instructions to the chief architect Bezalel. And again, only Moses can assemble the tabernacle. So it's his relationship to the tabernacle in Exodus. The book of Leviticus is clearly the priest's relationship to the tabernacle. Right? They get installed over here, the offerings that are brought, the different sections of the offering that they get depending on its type, and then various issues of the tabernacle that the priests function within. And then in book number 4, it's the people's relationship to the tabernacle. We learn about the encampment, how the 12 tribes live around the tabernacle here. The leaders bring their gifts to the altar and so on. So we have 3 different relationships to the tabernacle from 3 different angles: Moses, the priests, and the leaders. And I'd like to extend this a little bit further and perhaps say these 3 books of the Torah, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, that deal with the development of the nation, perhaps we could say there's 3 pillars. Exodus is really about Moses. It's his birth, him becoming the Redeemer, getting us out of Egypt, then giving us the Torah and becoming the lawgiver, then becoming our great defender, and then the one who gets the instructions and guides the building of the tabernacle. So it really focuses on Moses. Leviticus is the book of the priests, the Kohanim. In fact, it's called Torah Kohanim, the Torah of the priests, because it focuses a lot on their service within the tabernacle. And then the book of Numbers is really about the nation, how we live around the tabernacle, then bad decisions we make with rejecting the land, and then the rebellion against the priests, and then the various wars we have to fight, and then how we have to go in and inherit the land of Israel and what's going to be required to do so. So I think there's something to keep in mind and to focus on as you go through the Torah. We have three different pillars to the nation: Moses, the priests, and the nation. Okay, let's do a little review, and here we go. The tabernacle spans 3 books of the Torah: Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers. 3 events occur on the same day of the same year. Moses assembles the tabernacle on the 1st of Nisan of the 2nd year. Aaron and his sons become priests on that same day, and the leaders bring gifts to the altar in the book of Numbers in Parsha number 2 that begins on the same day the same year. And we said, therefore, there are 3 different relationships to the tabernacle: Moses' relationship to the tabernacle, the priests, and the nation's relationship to the tabernacle. And then we expanded to say that perhaps each book of these 3 books, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, focus on the 3 pillars of the nation, right? We could say Exodus is really Moses, his birth, becoming Redeemer, the lawgiver, the Savior, and the one who leads the building of the tabernacle. The priests and their functioning within the tabernacle, and the nation, they're living around the tabernacle, their various challenges, issues, rebellions, and poor choices as they move closer to the land of Israel.